The problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds. Welcome to Sarah's Country, of course the home of where we celebrate rural life in paradise at the bottom of the world, little old New Zealand. The good, the bad and the ugly. We do it here with open minds and of course open hearts, because to me that is what matters. I'm your host Sarah Periam, and I love sharing with you my favourite parts of this country that define who we are, that sets us apart from the rest of the world. We know that we punch well above our weight globally, innovating without asking for permission, and we do so of course humble as an old apple pie. We have a great show lined up for you tonight, of course, celebrating innovation and success, whilst not beating around the bush on what barriers we have to hurdle across as we weather together and as our future together as a country. It got me thinking today, actually, about the way rural cartoons over time have walked beside the challenges and, brought light and shade to this journey with, of course, that awesome political satire and always the undercurrent of demonstrating, the time of the moment and, of course, who we are as our culture. So throughout the show, we're going to have a lot of fun because our lineup of guests between our lineup of guests, we're going to discuss the finest political and rural cartoonists, because did you know that this week it was World Cartoonist Day? We are live streaming Sarah's Country right now across 10 plus platforms, or if you're listening to us on demand on podcast. So I can see if you're listening and watching along live, but I also want to hear from you too. Who was your favourite cartoonist? I mean, I grew up closely with Garrick Tremaine in the Otago Daily Times. He was great at sticking one into the establishment. Now, I want to know who is your favourite cartoonist. If you've got the chance, please comment below in the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching, on the Farmers Weekly website. Make sure that you put up, I want to hear that. And let's celebrate about who New Zealand's favourite cartoonists have been over time. If you think of cartoons, they are like the olden day memes you see on Facebook nowadays. We've had so many family cartoons that have actually told the history of our Periam farming family challenges in Central Otago over the years that I sort of thought, oh, why not? I'll share with you. So I wanted to start, this was goes back quite about before I was born actually, starting with this cartoon of my granddad's CR, Periam. For those who can't see, he's standing on the top of the old sheepdog trails at Loburn there, and there's water all around it, and these dogs that have got, of course, life rafts, and it's basically saying, swim in behind, dogs swim, and it's all to do with the time around the Clyde Dam potentially flooding out the entire valley, and it didn't go that far, of course. It was always an iconic thing on the wall for us growing up in the 80s. And a more recent cartoon was commissioned for a book about the history of Central Otago wine industry, and it shows my Uncle John stomping the grapes using the Bendigo rabbits as labour on the wine bottling plant, with the caption there, we are turning rabbit shit into world-class Pinot Noir. It's a lot of fun, and then of course we've lost the art though, haven't we, of cartoon humour. It's all gone to memes, and this one has been circulating across the web. Ending up on the Ellen Show. It is Shrek the Sheep, old Cuzzy, and his full wall there with Uncle John, and they're taking the mickey out of him being quite overweight, saying, me emerging 8 weeks later from quarantine. So to go on the Ellen Show, that's pretty cool. I have some great little gems to share with you tonight, including my favourite rural cartoon growing up, and I tell you what, it wasn't actually Foot Rot Flats, so you'll have to keep tuned to find out. Tonight on Sarah's Country, we will kick off the show discussing MPI's sustainable food and fibre futures. Oh, there's a lot of F's there. And how the fund is sinking $1 million into a new information system in which will shape our prized dairy genetics into the future, with Steve Pino from MPI. After 7:30, we hear from AgriHQ's senior analyst, Suze Bremner, about the sale yards set to reopen under Alert Level 2. But the Warriors certainly not gone going into the winter, with livestock still on farm and low feed levels. Has the trends facing our food exports just heightened because of COVID-19. Taking the time to reach out to a good friend, Anna Campbell, Managing Director of Abacus Bio, and someone I highly respect as a thought leader in the agricultural industry. She's going to join us closer to 7:45 to discuss the changing patterns in food supply that must be addressed. And now the exciting part of tonight, but you will have to wait until after 8, special extended show. We will be speaking to the freshly announced 2020 Fonterra Dairy Woman of the Year winner. It's about to be announced during the show, and we're going to have the very first interview live with the winner right here on Ceres Country at 8 o'clock. Who will it be? The finalist Ngāi Tahu Farming Technical Farm Manager, Ashley Campbell from Christchurch, Auckland-based microbiologist and biochemist Natasha Maguire, and West Coast dairy farmer Heather Mackay. If you want to find out who it is, you can find out first here on Ceres Country at 8 o'clock. As we get Steve Pino from MPI on the line, I want to play you my favourite Dairy Woman of the Year. You may remember this, but this is the adorable 9-year-old Lucy from the Waikato, who has her own herd and prefers reading dairy catalogues than children's books.
This is Ceres Country.
A good bull produces good daughters, which produce good milk. I like playing with my friends and doing schoolwork. I still like the farm the most. Mulu! Milo! Mulu! Some of these cows in here are mine. I've got Milo and Mulu. There's Mulu down there. You can play with all the animals. Here, chooky, chooky, chookies! Here, chooky, chooky, chookies! You don't have to worry about being clean. You can get dirty. And you can help Dad. Sunday we're teat sealing.
When the worker's away, Lucy gets out of bed early with me and she'll spray all the teats of the cows, which allows me to milk them by myself without being too stressed out and too busy.
And it's just up a steep part. Great.
The new LIC catalogue that she'd been waiting for turned up in the mail, and she was supposed to be in bed asleep, and I walked past her door to find her with the light on reading the catalogue.
When you have a good bull, it should have a good BW and it should be a 202. That's what we think makes a bull special. We usually use daughter proven. So we look through at the udders, the capacity, the milking speed, and how it adapts to milking. And we look at how the udder is supported and the front and the rear teat placements, so they're not too wide or they're not together. What's so cool about having my own herd of cows is that Dad doesn't get to choose the bulls for them.
Lucy likes to make certain decisions on the farm that she likes to feel a part of, and if I leave her out, she can be very upset.
And annoying.
Upset and annoyed if I don't include her in some of the decisions.
One could say she's the boss.
Dad's the boss. Where are you, Milo? Oh, there you are, Milo. Those are all my cows in here. I want to be a dairy farmer when I grow up.
Well, the recent announcement of funding from the Ministry of Primary Industries will develop a new information system to help shape our genetics powering New Zealand's multi-billion-dollar dairy sector. The world-leading system will be used to record and collate vital data on a range of important traits of dairy cows, which will fast-track genetic gains for traits important to farmers, using, of course, artificial insemination rather than the current archaic system of collecting this data. The man behind the decisions of where MPI's Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures dollars goes is the Director of Investment Programs, Steve Pino, who joins us now. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Sarah.
Steve, before we crack into it, we're talking about cartoonists. We've had a lot of wonderful ones across a lot of the New Zealand newspapers over the decades. Is there any ones that sort of spring to mind that are favourites that you can name?
I love the Bogor cartoons. I'm trying to remember the name of the artist, but the hedgehog and the woodsman are great, funny cartoons.
There is so many. So fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve. Steve, firstly, we were just talking there. I do want to get deeper into the Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures. There's a lot of name changes have happened over the time.
Yes.
But in the wider ability to pump spending into, of course, research and development in our sector. But let's talk about this particular program, $1 million going into our prize dairy genetics program. Could you give us an overview of where that's going to go to?
Great. So this program is working with the breed societies who breed some of our specialist breeds in New Zealand. So the partner with the program is the Holstein Friesian Association, and they've got 5 different dairy breed associations that they are working with. And so the intention of the project is to basically rebuild the platform that they use to collate information about the traits of the animals that they are breeding. And so with our assistance, they're able to, rebuild the system they've got, which is 20 years old and getting a bit creaky. And also they're going to expand it so they can include more traits and record more information about the animals, and integrate it into a national database, which is used to collect the information on all of the dairy cows in New Zealand, so that that's available for researchers and breeders and farmers in terms of improving genetics and understanding our overall dairy herd.
So I must admit, I don't have a huge background in dairy compared to sheep and beef. Is this similar to SIL or breed plan in terms of sheep and beef?
So this is really, it's a database to be able to capture the information. And so it doesn't actually hold the genetics, I guess, but it's just a tool to make the information about all of the different animals available.
Okay, wonderful. And how is it in terms of collaboration? There's obviously, as you said, 5 different companies there coming together. That's actually quite significant.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, that we are enabling our wider industry to collaborate together. And what this project means is that all of the information that is available through the likes of LIC, which goes into the national database, that'll be combined also with this information from the breed societies. So in one place, all of the information from all of the different organisations working in genetics will be available.
I have a question coming here from Bruce, Steve. Will all the data be freely available to any farmer?
Yes, so the data will be going into the database, which is managed by a subsidiary of Dairy NZ. So that's called the Dairy Industry Good Animal Database. And so there's information online about how people are able to get access to information from it.
I was just thinking, just another good old acronym to throw into the primary sector.
I was trying to avoid saying DGAD.
DGAD, yes. Yeah, no, as any people working in our sector will understand. And I have a real pet hate. I like to speak them out, these acronyms that we use so freely that people don't really know. So that is the Dairy Industry Good Animal Database, a new system that we're discussing here that MPI's Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures Fund has just put $1 million into.
Well, just to clarify that, the Dairy Industry Good Animal Database is one that already exists.
Oh, my apologies.
And it's the system that the breed societies use. We're helping them to rebuild theirs and make sure that they're able to plug into the Dairy Industry Good Animal Database so that the the national database has a full set of information, and so the breeding societies have a really good system that they can use.
Steve, let's talk about this particular fund, the SFF fund, and how it has been going. $40 million a year up in terms of grants and investments into the sector. It must be a challenge in your role as the Director of Investment Programs in terms of deciding what does and doesn't get funded.
It's actually a real privilege. I think I'm in a really lucky position where I can see many of the applications that are coming to us with these really interesting projects where people are looking for assistance. So the programs, or SFF Futures, has been running for about 18 months now. The very first project that was announced, we had a launch of that project, I think back in August last year. That's in the area of seaweed, and so they have been investigating whether seaweed that is growing on mussel lines in the Coromandel, a seaweed called wakame, whether that's of suitable quality to sell in Japan. That project's actually finished already, and they've been able to show actually that they can get quality seaweed that's suitable quality for the Japanese market. The next challenge is looking at the costs of that and seeing if they can deliver it in a cost-effective way. So as well as that project, we've now got 32 projects which are up and running. So those projects have got, we've made a commitment of about $12 million to those projects. There's about another $15 million that the applicants are putting into them. So already we've got quite a sizable portfolio of interesting projects going.
What's your thoughts on the differing between the primary growth partnership of co-investment versus the style of the sustainable food and fibres future?
So SFF Futures, we still have co-investment as an important attribute of it. I think it makes a big difference when you've got an organisation or a community group that's actually putting some of their own resources into a project, and then if we can just get behind them and help them make the project be more successful or deliver more, that can be a really impactful way of working with them. So Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures, or SFF Futures as we call it, it's really combined some of the best parts of what was the Primary Growth Partnership, where we were working on very large programs, typically at an industry level, and the Sustainable Farming Fund, which had been running for many years and was very successful, working more at a community and catchment level on smaller projects. And so through SFF Futures, we've taken the best of both of those and we're able to invest in a broader range of projects.
Applied research funding. Should our Crown Research Institutes have funding applied to commercial outcomes? I
think I'm not sure I'd claim to be qualified to talk about the research that CRIs do, but certainly a lot of the research that has come out of their work, we've been able to work with industries and community groups to actually bring that out onto the farm or into the fishing environment to be able to make their research a commercial reality. So, for example, there's some projects around biosecurity challenges that some of our industries have, where we're able to support some industry groups to pick up some research which has been done by CRIs and actually do the work to get some biocontrols out onto farm.
We're in May, Steve. And May always comes with one word, and it's called the budget. Well, that's two. How well funded is this, and how much more it could to be able to help grow the one industry that, of course, is being underpinned to pull our economy through this situation right now?
Yeah, so we have $40 million per year that's available for us to invest. That's both to fund the existing projects which are running and also to commit to new projects which will be needing funding over the next few years. We've got funding available. We're still looking for more good projects that we can support. And at the moment, with the devastating impact of COVID-19, we're really keen to see projects where we can help industry and businesses to get back on their feet again, particularly where they might lead to employment in areas where we've got people who have lost roles from other industries. And also there'll be, because of the disruption of our local and international value chains, there'll be opportunities for companies that if they're really quick they'll be able to get more value for the product they're delivering, or get closer to their customers, and really keen to see those opportunities so that we can figure out if there's an opportunity for us to help.
Just in passing, you just mentioned the word earlier that it's a privilege to be in your role. Are you heartened by the amazing innovation of Kiwis?
I think it's really cool what people come up with. There's some really neat projects that are in our pipeline, doing things with plant proteins, different ways of looking at aquaculture, looking for sort of really interesting compounds that we can get from some of our native plants. It's there's some really innovative, cool people out there.
Thank you so much, Steve, for taking the time to join us. That's Steve Pino. He is the Director of Investment Programs at the Ministry for Primary Industries, talking there about the Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures, which, of course, is a fantastic grant that is going into our most innovative new up-and-coming startups in the food sector, as well as, of course, our environmental research. I love your comments coming in. I'm just going to go to them now. We're talking about our favourite cartoonists in New Zealand, and who were those that you grew up with? Steve mentioned his there before. I'm set to show you mine that is not Foot Rot Flats, but even though I did grow up with. We do have a few. Rosalie says, yeah, of course, Murray Ball, and Kate says she agrees with me. Garrett Tremaine is fantastic. And Bryce says, I remember having to do college English assignments on Bromhead's cartoons, as Steve said, out of the New Zealand Herald back in the 70s. Didn't always understand the satirical humour back then, but sure understand it now. It's very much like TV cartoons when you watch them as adults, and the adult humour undertones that you only get later on. Please let me know in the comments below. We're celebrating because, of course, it was World Cartoonist Day, and the beautiful, amazing captured moment that we've just experienced in the last month in this cartoon right here that was put on the full back page of the Farmers Weekly a couple of weeks ago. It was produced by Chris Slane. I'm actually going to get a framed copy of this. I've put my request in. We'll weather together, it says, and it's the typical dry-as-a-bone Kiwi farmer in his gummies with his hand around New Zealand on the week where we went into level 4 lockdown. Now, the importance of that is so special as well, because that was produced by Mr. Chris Slane. Now, Chris Slane has been a cartoonist for over 30 years in New Zealand, one of the best known for his political commentary. And the fact that on the day that Chris drew that for the back page of Farmers Weekly was the day that he lost his job for the Listener that he was with for 30 years because of Bayer Media closing down due to COVID-19. So I love the fact that it is an absolute sort of part of us and a part of our history, that we can have these cartoons, rural, political, and the like. Now, before we go to our next guest, is Suze Bremner. She is the Senior Analyst for AgriHQ. We're going to talk about the sale yards and market prices. We're going to hear from Tom and Sarah Wells up there in the Manawatu, and the special on-farm story by Global HQ.
This is Sarah's Country.
At the start, I kind of treated it like it could be just a learning experience, see what it's like, learn about the farming operation. And if I was to choose to go back to the city and maybe continue a career in journalism, at least I would have an understanding of a farming business. As it transpired, I enjoyed being a shepherd. It's what I want to do. We're Sarah and Tom Wells, and we're sheep and beef farmers in the Mofonga Valley, just east of Taihape. We farm around 500 hectares in the Mofonga Valley, east of Taihape. We farm sheep and beef. It's a breeding unit. It's just basically a husband and wife unit, so we both work on the farm. The farm's been in the family since the 1800s. It sounds quite cheesy, but often when I'm on the farm I look around and it's quite neat to think that other people looked at the same hills, other people rode their horses past the same trees, and yeah, it's just really special. Hinterland Foods is just an extension of the farming business, really. We set it up with a few of our friends who are also from farming backgrounds. It's just about trying to connect what we and other farmers are doing on the farm with consumers. People do like to know who owns the company, where the food's being produced, the process and where it comes from. We really see ourselves as food producers, not just farmers and not just people that put the stock on the trucks and say goodbye. It's a way of utilising skills that we've had in our previous lives. The marketing and the communication experience that I have just ties in nicely with what we're doing here on the farm. I think I would have gone shepherding straight away if there had have been more encouragement, and I can certainly say that of a few of my other friends as well. It's just something about putting on your boots and putting on your whistle and looking after animals and looking after the environment. It's just a great place to work and a great place to live.
Well, as we know, conditions in the Hawke's Bay have been described as potentially the worst drought in New Zealand history. And it's had a real flow-on effect, not only with COVID on top of that, creating a backlog from our processors to get stock away on farm prior to the winter, but of course the strict protocols around selling physically at our sale yards, which is a part of the New Zealand culture. We're joined now on Sarah's Country by Senior Analyst for Agri HQ, Suze Bremner. Welcome tonight, Suze.
Thank you, Sarah. It's really good to be here.
Now, you're farming in the Hawke's Bay and personally understand the struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm third generation here on our Hawke's Bay farm, and we are living and breathing this drought just like so many other Hawke's Bay farmers are, and wider areas have obviously had a very dry season as well. So, yes, it's some pretty tough times.
Can you explain to our audience here tonight about the process that has happened under these levels of COVID-19 from level 4 through to potentially going out into level 2, hopefully next week, and the effect it's had on sale yards?
So, of course, the sale yards shut down when we moved into alert level 4 and remained shut all through that. That had a very big impact on livestock selling at a time when we were not only battling COVID-19, we had M. bovis, we had TB in some areas, and of course we had the dry conditions going on. So to have a selling system that everyone knows so well suddenly taken away was pretty devastating, but it opened the windows for a lot of companies to set up online trading platforms. So we've seen a real substantial growth in that market, and it actually seems, Sarah, that each week there's a new one that turns up, just when we think we've seen the end of them. And so last week when we moved, was it only last week? It was, into alert level 3, New Zealand Farmers Livestock introduced a hybrid selling system, which meant that they essentially held cattle sales at the Frankton and Stratford sale yards. They live streamed those sales. They put in live streaming technology and also set up an online bidding system, which meant that buyers could go to the sale, but it was under very, very strict protocols that were set for the level 3, or they could bid at home and bid from home. So that really opened up a new window in the online trading, but it also did prove a point that the sales could be held under strict protocol under alert level 3. So now what we're looking at heading into alert level 2 is that the companies have made the announcement that when we get to alert level 2, the sale yards will reopen, again under strict protocols, which we will find out more about tomorrow when the government makes the announcements of what we'll see in level 2. But it does bring some certainty to farmers that these sale yards will be open. We're looking at on Monday, if we get the go ahead that level 2 will happen. We've already got the first sale confirmed as Stortford Lodge on Thursday. So that's brilliant for us farmers here in Hawke's Bay that might need that outlet. We can potentially do that next Thursday if we're in alert level 2.
So what effect, of course, we're going through the weaner market at the moment, and there isn't that grass market to underpin prices. How have prices reacted?
Yeah, so in a normal year, we would have just finished off some very busy months of weaner fairs and calf sales. It's been a really, really tough season this season, trying to move calves in this environment that is very new to everyone. But we've also seen a bit of a trickle-down effect where stock is not, the hold-ups at the processors around, mainly due to COVID-19, has meant that stock has not been able to be killed, which means the next age group, the buyers are not picking them up. And also, because we haven't had that grass market to underpin weaner prices, we've seen some levels that we really don't really want to be seeing, but we have also seen a lot that haven't been able to be moved. So in the North Island, traditional steers have been sitting around $2.70 to $2.85 a kilo, and Hereford freezing steers around $2.45 to $2.50 a kilo live weight. Those are live weight prices. We did see Peter Walsh and Associates have held live bid auctions, which is their online selling platform, which they've seen some great success with. And so for their Henley Station sale, their top Angus steers made $2.80 to $3 a kilo, and the heifers were $2.35 to $2.60 a kilo. So not what we've been used to the past few years. We've had a really good run in prices, but sellers have had to meet the market this year.
And of course, we're going into Gypsy Day, or formerly now known as Moving Day, and of course the offload of a lot of cull cows being drafted out prior to winter. Well, there'll be a real effect on that market as well.
So of course we typically see the autumn offload of cows as some of these dairy farms shareholders, and that will move around. That autumn offload is very typical in any year, but this year it's been compounded with COVID-19 hold-ups, the sale yards being closed, the drought in areas has meant that there has been probably deeper culling and people probably more digging into breeding herds, more traditional breeding herds. So that is creating a lot of backlog at the processors. And so we are seeing that bonus cow prices are fairly low this year. In the North Island, we're looking at $1.10 to $1.30 per kilo live weight for boner cows, but in the South Island, we're looking at around 60 to 80 cents per kilo. So that's getting pretty low. But what that opportunity that has opened is that some of those cows are coming up to the North Island and are going out to grazing, just because they can be picked up at pretty low values, and they'll just graze them out until the market picks up.
Yeah, and of course we have spoken just before to Steve Pino from the Ministry of Primary Industries as the Director Investment and Programming in terms of pumping money into ensuring that we look after our dairy genetics. So it would be a terrible shame if we're starting to really dig deep into our capital stock.
For sure, and it's not just the dairy herds, it is these traditional, the traditional beef herds as well. It would be devastating. It's just another blow, isn't it, to add to everything. But I guess the silver lining is that hopefully by doing that, people can take the pressure off at home a bit, and once those cattle are out the gate, they can focus more on what they've got left and build back from there.
Okay, to close, Damien O'Connor's come out with more cash to throw around to advise farmers like yourself, Suze, about how much feed you've got going into the winter. How frustrating it is as a farmer on the ground, and what is actually needed to ensure that we are going into the winter with at least something.
Oh, Sarah, we've had so many discussions over this, haven't we? Look, as I say, I'm a farmer myself, and I can talk. I like talking. Not so many farmers necessarily do like talking as much as I do. What I do like is action. And what we need is action. We need to know that if we need to buy in supplementary feed and it's very expensive, which is getting more and more expensive every day, that can somehow, there can be something that can help us pay that bill. It's just becoming an impossible situation where the supplementary feed has got very hard to find. And if we can't feed our stock, we need our sale yards open. Level 2 is hopefully going to give us that, but we need action. We don't need to be talking to too many people. We would just like to know that our stock are being fed, and if we can't feed them, we can sell them.
Sell them or process them, of course. And the backlog
Of course.
is actually
And that's
coming along.
Yeah, that's about a 6 to 8 week backlog sitting there as well. So yeah, but I know the processors are doing all they can to get that capacity back up.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Suze Bremner is a senior analyst at Agri HQ, keeps a very close eye on our sale yards, and is the editor of Livestock Eye. So ensure you go over to Agri HQ and subscribe to their incredible market reports. They've absolutely got their finger on the pulse and their elbow leaning across the rail, keeping you up to date on what's happening with market prices. Now, of course, that interview was recorded earlier today with Suze Bremner. Joel just missed the cue there, but that's okay. I was sitting there waiting. I'm loving your feedback. Honestly, the engagement's great. We're well underway in terms of what are your favourite New Zealand cartoonists. We're celebrating World Cartoonist Day this week. Hands down, across the board, of course, a New Zealand cult, Foot Rot Flats. And I'm loving seeing some of the others coming through, like, of course, the Edna cartoons, Bruce says, and the Thelwell ponies. I love those as well. I'm certainly going to share with you very soon my favourite rural cartoons, and a couple of them actually. So before we go to the break, if you've got any others outside of those New Zealand iconic cartoonists, I want to hear them and celebrate them in the comments below, wherever you are watching on Sarah's Country. And our next guest, I know because she's commented underneath, is definitely a Foot Rot fans. Well, there's a lot of F's in this show tonight. And so I've actually dug up from the archives my favourite segment of Foot Rot Flats. I have been likened to Cheeky. This is Wal taking her out on a date. And of course, Jess the dog was not impressed.
You're not poison, are you, little pills?
Even when everything changes, some things will always stay the same. The cows still need milking, the economy still needs dairy, and dairy farmers will always have what it takes. Whatever you need to keep milking, our job during the lockdown is to get it to you, because we know what it takes.
Now, of course, COVID-19 has created a lot of interruptions within our international supply chains, but more in market. And the rise of protectionism has seen New Zealand produce in places of our market, such as the US and the UK and Europe, under threat. I really enjoy, as I said in the opening, the thought leadership of many of our New Zealand agricultural leaders, and one of my favourites is joining us now, Anna Campbell, the Managing Director of Abacus Bio. Firstly, how's the household been over lockdown with your crew?
Yeah, interesting actually. We've got 4 teenagers in here at the moment, 3 of mine and an extra, and we haven't got a particularly big house, so we've had our moments.
Oh, absolutely. And how great is it sharing about these rural cartoons? You could actually sit them down and educate them about Foot Rot Flats.
Yeah, I could.
Dig it out.
And they're at that age, that nice teenage age where anything that I'm interested in is pretty dumb. So someone else would probably be better to bring that to them.
Or tell them to make a TikTok out of that song that's in there.
Yes.
Swinging around the pole.
Yeah, not bad.
A slice of heaven. And I really enjoyed one of your pieces that was published in the Otago Daily Times, when you're sort of highlighting some of these trends that actually were around pre-COVID, but have probably been heightened or sustained because of it. Could you run us through a few of those thoughts that you've been having?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple are pretty obvious, and what's happening is that smaller food players are getting a real hammering. So the larger food players like the Walmarts and the Amazons are starting to really dominate, and those players that have really good investment in robotics are only going to get better. So it's really interesting then how we might support our smaller players. And then alongside that, there's this big rally call to buy local, which kind of suits New Zealand and it kind of doesn't. So if you think about New Zealand, we're a food exporter, so we want people to be really comfortable buying international, beautiful quality food. And the reality of buying local for most of the people in the world is that they just can't access that food. So within 100 kilometres of where they live. So staple wheat, for example, or staple crops, a third of the world's population live more than 100 kilometres from the nearest staple crops. So we've kind of got this weird thing going on of, buy local, support our small players, but actually local food is not really a reality for the world's food supply.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, what you're seeing there with the processing of meat internally within the US because of COVID, these protocols within the US manufacturing, have you been following them closely as well? It seems really nuts.
Yeah, and it's really, it's quite frightening actually, because I think there are some big animal welfare backlashes happening, and seeing the same in Asia, not so much with food supply, but people concerned about food safety with eating meat. So there's a rise at the moment in people eating plant-based protein. So these are things we have to watch out for, and just keep our, really understand what our place is in this whole future protein space.
But also at the same time, our protein that we do, the real protein for in terms of meat and milk, certainly really ticks these boxes around some immunity factors. Our manuka honey, even our seafood, it's highly nutritiously dense, our venison. When are we going to actually really start to build on this in the
nutraceutical kind
That's the word I was looking for.
No, what's really, really encouraging is that, so health and food is one of the big trends that is just going stratospheric. So nutraceutical sales are soaring. Manuka sales have gone up, and so have kiwi fruit sales. I was just reading in the latest Farms Weekly today that came out that kiwi fruit's on the rise. So that's really, really encouraging. And from a New Zealand perspective, I've long said we need to be investing far more in terms of R&D and market support to really hit this food and health space, because I don't think this trend will go away. I think it's been gradually building, and COVID-19 is just absolutely slamming it home. People are really interested in eating whole food that has healthy properties. And so we need to understand what those healthy properties are and convey that to consumers and really celebrate the fact that we have such wonderful production systems. I mean, I would far rather have beef from New Zealand that's raised on beautiful grass-fed, good fatty acid composition hill country than, slammed full of grain in a feeding lot. So we've just got to tell this health story on top of the environmental story. I think we're getting better at telling the environmental story, but the health story has got to come now.
Got a couple of questions there, just based off some of the guests we've had on Sarah's Country. Firstly, Steve Pino, part of the SFF Futures Fund with MPI.
Yeah.
Do you believe that we are putting enough money into research, applied science, going into the value-add space?
No. I think given that agriculture and food is our greatest export, and with the demise in tourism, it's becoming even more important, we really, really need to support this industry. And if I look back on my journey through science research, a lot of the fundamental research that we're reaping the benefits from now, but it's just not being done anymore. And there's some really simple things around nutrition and health that we're not supporting. And it's, for example, developing clinical trials to look at the impact of some of our high iron meat products, and and offal products, or and just putting that support behind that, what can be quite very expensive and basic research. So I think we need to re-investigate how we invest in our agricultural R&D.
And also to talking about our guest, we had Sir Peter Gluckman on the show last night. What a wise and wonderful man, with lots of amazing opinions and advice around where we should be going, but in particular really focusing on farm systems. So you were bringing up there about grass-fed, but then we get ourselves into a drought situation where feeding grain to our livestock is our only option. And then you look down the barrel of the processing capacity and the backload it's going to have with skinny stock going into winter, and that social media perception of those animals is not going to help. When do you think, and what's needed to actually have some decision making at higher levels rather than just thinking around this?
I hope that this COVID-19 pandemic lights a fire under the decision makers around the importance of food and agri to our country. And I think there has been quite a shift in terms of the public's view of agri, and people realising that agri at the moment is possibly holding our economy together. So I think that will shift things, and I think this view that tourism and some of those industries can carry us through will start to disappear. So I think we should start to see a shift and an appreciation of the journey that farmers have been on, and I would like to think that would lead to more investment for farmers.
But also more collaboration around how we're going to make sure that these integrated farm systems or multi-land use business models, it sounds very flash, but it's actually quite complicated to do.
Yeah, it's actually really exciting though. There's a really great report by an organisation called Coriolis, and it was commissioned by MB, and it came out just prior to COVID-19. And it talks about New Zealand really underutilising our land and thinking more about how, yes, we've got fantastic hill country, but pretty much every hill country farmer will also have a flat area, and how can we potentially utilise that flat area for some higher value or some plant-based protein products, tunnel houses, those kind of things. What more can we do to actually support our farmers to have greater diversity on farm and potentially intensify certain areas, providing we also manage the environmental ramifications of that. So these are the kind of things that I'd really love our government to strategically start investing in.
And Abacus Bio, with the vast array of consultants that actually be able to walk alongside the farmer to come up with some of these different business models as well.
Yeah, and farmers appreciate that they need diversity of income as well. And so I think there is a slight shift. We've gone sort of towards every farmer being a specialist. So you have a dairy farmer, you have a crop farmer, you have a horticulturalist. And I think some of the Māori farmers are leading the way in this front, where they are really looking at their whole enterprises and saying, well, what's best for what part of my land, and how can I share resources, how can I share labour, and how can I look at, well, actually I can combine a kiwi fruit orchard with my sheep and beef farm. So this kind of thinking is I think where we need to go.
So you're very positive and optimistic about the next few years, despite the economic fallout?
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried about geopolitics and particularly what's happening with the US and China, because we are going to see a lot more protectionism around food, and what will that mean for New Zealand as food exporters. And it is really interesting at the moment with the US gunning for the WHO and Australia also joining in. New Zealand hasn't gunned for the WHO, and I think that's probably very sensible. We want what's happened with COVID-19 in China and in the US and every country. It's happened to be investigated, but we can't afford to get offside with China. They're our biggest food importer. They're hugely important to us, as is wider Asia, and that's where our future is, and that combined with food and health is where we need to be, where we need to be going. So I'm worried, but I'm also optimistic.
Oh, always wonderful to have a chat. We should chat more often. It's Anna Campbell, Managing Director of Abacus Bio, with her thoughts there around the COVID-19 recovery for New Zealand and where we should be putting our efforts, certainly in terms of health from our produce that we create. Now, I would say we're getting closer to the end of the show. We do have to fill some time. Normally, we would have our next guest about now. However, it is embargoed until 8 o'clock, and we will have the very first interview with the 2020 Fonterra Dairy Woman of the Year, which has just been announced over Ceres Country to the Dairy Woman Network. And I'm really excited at 8 o'clock to be able to be joined by the winner. There is, of course, 3 finalists there, just to remind you who they are. I'm just going to find that to read out. My apologies. We have Ngāi Tahu Farming Technical Farm Manager Ashley Campbell from Christchurch, Auckland-based microbiologist and biochemist Natasha Maguire, and West Coast dairy farmer Heather Mackay. They are the finalists and will be announced very shortly, and we'll have the very first interview at 8 o'clock live here on Ceres Country, so make sure that you stick around. I did give you a promise that I was going to share with you my favourite cartoons growing up. I had the pleasure of interviewing David Henshaw's from Jock's Country's son when they released Jock's Country, the book, a couple of years ago to celebrate 50 years of his father's cartoons. I had some very dear friends that I grew up with on the same road in a sheep and beef farm, not very far up the road. Loved them dearly, spent a lot of time there, and they had their toilet, they are everywhere, in the toilet in the wool shed, the toilet in the house, covered in these cartoons. So I found a few favourites, and those who are watching from overseas or never seen Jock's Country, you appreciate how rural cartoonists really captured the moment of the time, but also the culture of Kiwi farmers. So Joel, we've got the first one there, and for those listening on podcast, I'll explain that to you. So the first one there is, old cocky leaning on the rails of the yards and says, "It's tough, all right, mate. Even those who don't pay have stopped buying." Next one, moving down. We have black humour here in New Zealand, Joel. Two cock out on a horse there. So I'm just trying to bring it on mine. 2 farmers out on a horse, mustering the back blocks. "You having a yarn away?" And he's pointing out, he said, "Well, ANZ own up to the main ridge. Westpac have got the title with the buildings, and I've got a couple of paddocks out the back." You can see the humour of this, of course, satiric rural life. And lastly, it's a bit of a sort of throwback to that Spates Perfect Woman, where he's out sitting on a rock with his horse and his dog. "Wanted young woman to share life with. Must have own horse and dog. Please send photo of farm." He's a bit of a heck deer hunter, isn't he? So yeah, Jock's Country, absolutely my favourite, hands down. I mean, of course, Foot Rot Flats, it's absolutely amazing. I grew up with that. That was a way to shut us kids up and play the old VCR. Now, as we go to get our Dairy Woman of the Year on the line, I want to be able to get a feel for who's listening and who's watching. I have a bit of time to fill, and I don't want to just play you a whole heap of ads. So let me know if you're new to the show and where you're listening. I want to know what is your favourite little slice of paradise around New Zealand. I want to get you involved in this show. Joel's just getting I think our winner on the line. Participate in the comments below where you are tonight and of course what you're loving about it, as well as your favourite rural cartoonists. I tell you what, we're having a lot of fun with this show. It's certainly talking about COVID-19. Pivoting has been an ultimate word, and pivoting with this live daily show has been something that has been a dream come true. I've seen a lot of business models, and one of those, Carfields, went and launched with Auction Plus as their online trading platform. I think we're up to nearly, 7 or 8 of them? There's a few, but anyway, they said it was something that we're going to do anyway. So how many things have come to light from this COVID-19 situation, which was literally just a wee kick up the bum? We'd heard from Mark Pisey last night from the Central Plains Water and Agritech, Lincoln Agritech here have been saying for ages, we want to send drones out to do farm audits. And, you know, you've got the old garden, oh, well, you know, by the time you take off. But this is the thing, is, you know, the Environment Canterbury councillors had to pass through law to get a quorum in their meetings via Zoom. It's just a really cool place. I'm actually really excited. How many people will not be going to Auckland for that 15-minute meeting and choose otherwise to spend quality time with their family? It's just amazing. Oh, Tim Innes. Good evening, Tim. How are you from the Lindis Pass? How's the snow down there, Tim? I'd love to know. Thank you so much. Luke is a kiwi fruit grower in Golden Bay. Oh, touches my heart. I tell you what, it does sometimes feel that, you know, you're talking away there to yourself, but it's so lovely to look down and know that I've certainly got a huge community around Ceres Country that's building, and I really appreciate it. Joel has just popped out to talk to our winner and is connecting her through. This is, of course, a 2020 Fonterra Dairy Woman of the Year. It is, of course, a prestigious prize, and it was taken out in 2019 by Trish Rankin. Amazing work that Trish Rankin has done around circular waste on our farms and how we can really bring that to the fore. And of course, it's the absolute calibre of women that work in the dairy industry across all parts of it as well that is celebrated. Dairy Women's Network have finished up, I think, day 2 of their conference, where there's a lot of thought leadership and support and advice to women who certainly are very much at the table when it comes to our farming businesses across New Zealand now, and I'm extremely proud of that. I think that we might be able to announce, I've got 7:57, and I tell you what, I'm not a rule breaker. This may come to many who are watching as a shock. I play by the rules, and I want to ensure that I don't break it and that we announce this at 8 o'clock. Now, Mighty Manawatu, Joanna Greaves, thank you so much for your insightful show. Thank you, Joanna. I really hope that a lot of people do get some amazing information out of the show. And we also have it sliced and diced up by the wonderful Megan in the UK to be able to share on social every morning. There's also on podcasts as well. If you've always wanted to know what a podcast is, and honestly, it's absolutely revolutionising the way that we consume audio in terms of, you know, what your traditional radio. Now, I must tell you this. It was an absolute highlight. I've been in this game now 10 years since I first started putting television programs to farmers on YouTube. People told me I was mad, and farmers loved it. Because I know farmers are not technologically inept like people think they are, and it frustrates me. The other day, from a cocky in Central Otago, he said to me, I love how I can Bluetooth you from my smartwatch, my Apple Watch, to my hearing aid, and I can listen while I'm drafting news. Now, how great's that? Doesn't have the time to sit down and read, doesn't have the time to watch a video, but certainly can consume, you know, this knowledge transfer that we need to get out there more readily available in a way that people want to consume. So very proud of it. Very stoked that you're on this journey, and we are building up to 8 o'clock. I certainly, definitely have the eyes and the hawk watching me to make sure. Trish is here, our 2019 Dairy Woman of the Year. She's watching. Mark Hall, love your show, listening in Geraldine. Oh, you guys are absolutely filling my heart that you're enjoying and following along. So I tell you what, there's so many people that just sit there and watch and never comment, and now to know that you're pouring in. Oh, there's people from the Bombay Hills, and so in Auckland, been here 30 years and love the peace and quiet. Getting very excited, and it's clicked over to 8 o'clock. And I can officially announce the 2020 Fonterra Dairy Woman of the Year winner goes to no other than Ngāi Tahu Technical Manager, Ashley Campbell. Can you play the video there, Joel?
Yes.
This is Ceres Country.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Aureke te Mauka, ko Waiteke te Awa, ko Pukatura ki te Marae, ko Kaitahu ka te Moimoi ka Ewe, ko Ashley Campbell toku ikawa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, my name's Ashley and I'm born and raised here in Canterbury. I'm the oldest of two tamariki to my parents Paul and Joanne. I also have a younger brother called Brendan. We all live here in Otatahi, Christchurch. I'm also a proud descendant of Ngāi Tahu. So I started milking cows through my years at high school and didn't think much of it as a career at that point in time. However, I took an early stint at university out of high school and it wasn't for me. So what did I do? I ended up swinging cups early mornings and I found out that I have a real passion for this industry. Since then I've had heaps of roles, from rearing calves to managing dry stock unit, as well as my recent roles as a sustainability coordinator for Ngāi Tahu farming. I made the conscious decision to jump back into university a few years ago because I felt so much passion for this industry and knew that there was an awesome career waiting there for me. My new role here at Ngāi Tahu Farming sees me as their technical farm manager. This role I've been in for just over 2.5 years now, and it sees me supporting and assisting the operational management and performance of our 8 dairy farms here at Te Whenua in North Canterbury. I love socialising as well as getting out and enjoying our backyard. We're super lucky here in New Zealand that we've got an amazing landscape to enjoy. In my spare time, I also enjoy being a member of New Zealand Young Farmers Organisation, which has seen me meet many like-minded people across the dairy industry and connect me through to the Dairy Women's Network. I also love a bit of country music and love a music festival. Winning the Fonterra Woman of the Year Award for 2020 would be an amazing recognition of how far I've come in this industry. I remember bombing out when I was 19 from university and thinking, where to from now? The opportunities that Fonterra and Dairy Women's Network have provided myself have given me the upskill and the confidence to step and grow in this industry in short 10 years. I've been bold, I've been brave, and I hope that this journey that I've been on can showcase to other young wahine out there that anything is achievable. So just to be recognised as a finalist, I'm over the moon and I cannot wait to see what comes from this award. Milk. Why? Because every product can be made from milk, like sour cream, cheese, butter, yogurt, and many other products as well. Some of you may have heard of Wild Foods Festival held in Hokitika on the West Coast. I'm not proud to say it, but they're responsible for me eating a few weird things, including hoo-hoo grubs, mountain oysters, crocodile, and I hate to say it, horse semen. The first person I would have join my bubble is the Queen. She turned 94 just the other week and she's the highest ranking leader in the Commonwealth. I'm sure she'd have a few stories to tell me. The second person that I'd invite would be Jamie Oliver. He's probably the only chef I know out there, and it's come to my attention during this isolation that I desperately need to learn how to cook. The third person that I'd have would actually be all of my whānau. It's just me and my flatmate in my bubble right now, but the thing that means more to me than any celebrity out there would be having my whānau close to me in this time.
that Trish would have had last year. Did you get something nice for dinner to be able to sit and watch the stream?
Yeah, me and my flatmate actually ordered, click and collect takeaways from the local pub. So we had a nice pizza, some fried chicken and some chips for dinner. We sat here eating in our lovely dresses though, and I am wearing my cozy woolen socks. So eating and celebrating in comfort here at home tonight.
Yeah. Hey, Ash, I can actually, I know what that's like. I wore my Allbirds while I was hosting the Young Farmer of the Year Grand Final. No one knew. It was fantastic. Of course, Ashley is the chair of the New Zealand Young Farmers Board, but of course she works for Ngāi Tahu, tis taking out this award. Let's kick it off. We've heard about your history there in the stream just before, but, can you please explain for those who's watching why this is such a significant recognition for yourself?
Wow. So I never considered the dairy industry as a career until, I guess, further down the track. I mean, I stumbled into the industry fresh-eyed, young. I wanted some money to pay for my vehicle that I could drive around in. So I ended up relief milking for a local dairy farmer. And that's kind of where I fell into the industry. And I guess I haven't looked back since. So many jobs, and I guess short 10 years in the industry. And I guess it just goes to show that, I've been involved 10 years now and I've had various roles, had various job opportunities. And it just shows how widespread the sector is and all the opportunities that are there for us to uptake.
The Fonterra Dairy Woman of the Year, effectively in my mind, is the pinnacle of being an ambassador for the sector, and of course also the achievements of women across the different business elements as well. You have a real focus, and of course we all do, but in the environmental stewardship that you've brought to your role at Ngāi Tahu. Can you explain what you've been involved with and how important that is to tell that story?
Yeah, I guess a lot of my job is involved with ensuring that we do the best we can when it comes to audit and compliance time. So I'm pretty proud to say, that our farms were the first within our Waimakariri catchment to receive A-grade audits. And that's hard work put in from everyone. It's not just the farm managers. Yes, they're the ones there that are living and breathing it, but it's a real dual effort. It comes from working with, your local regional councils. It comes with educating our farmers. It comes with educating the community, so that we can all upskill and be stewards of our land, of our whenua.
Anna Campbell before was talking about the Māori agribusiness really becoming a shining light and showing us the way with a lot of land use change, and also, of course, our governance and support for our staff on farms and things like that as well. How much have you seen that change of young Māori coming into the sector?
Yeah, I'm so fortunate having worked for Ngāi Tahu Farming the last 3.5 years. They have such a unique and special lens that they put over stewardship, over environmental. And so working for not only, sometimes there can often be tensions between environment and farming. And so seeing how we can work together to bridge that and bring everyone together on the journey. Working for Ngāi Tahu Farming, often you hear visions and business plans for companies that are, we're looking 12 months ahead, we're looking 2 years ahead. Working for Ngāi Tahu Farming, we're projecting looking forward 50 to 100 years, because, what we're doing in today's environment to look after the land, it's going to impact for tomorrow's generation. So we need to look after it today so that we can, reap the rewards for the future in the years to come. So it's such a beautiful company to work for, and I've learned so much.
You're such an advocate for young women getting into the sector as well. I mean, not only with your role at New Zealand Young Farmers, I mean, you're acknowledged as a Westpac Woman of Influence for rural as well. How much has this improved, and what also do we need to do to give women the confidence to put their hand up and really step up into these roles, especially at governance level?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope the next 12 months, being the ambassador for the Fonterra Woman of the Year Award, that I have this opportunity to get out there and network with other young wahine in the industry, and capture other young wahine that are out there that might not be in our industry currently. Obviously there's a lot of unsettlement right now with COVID-19 going on, and so You know, what implications is that going to have, but also what opportunities is that going to have for our industry? You know, we've got a unique position right now where we can be showcasing everything that we are doing to grab those young, not only women, but men to join the industry as well. You know, we've got the opportunity to inspire them, to excite them, and bring them on the journey with us, because I've really enjoyed my time in this industry, and it's something, you know, I'm never going to leave this industry. You've got me. I'm stuck here for good. And I hope I can bring some people along the journey with me as well.
Ash, I hear your words, and I'm exactly the same when it comes to rural broadcasting. I'm not going anywhere. I found what I meant to do, and of course, as a friend, can I also say you're stuck with me. I love you. I love you dearly. I'm not going anywhere, and I could not be more proud of you than I have in all of the years of all of your achievements. Again, I've got to say on behalf of our viewers and watchers, a huge congratulations. And of course, well done to Dairy Women's Network to pull off something, of course, which they've sadly had to do virtually as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely exceptional that they had an opportunity to, potentially cancel this event, but they were like, nah, we're gonna push through and we're gonna do this. I think that shows the impact that the Dairy Women's Network has on our industry. Don't shy away from an opportunity, step up, right? Be bold, and they've pulled it off completely. And I love what they've done, and I'm here to celebrate tonight, and then hopefully celebrate once lockdown's finished with a few other people.
Oh, can I please be one of those? Joel, could you? There's been some audio issues there with Ash towards the end, but thank you so much, Ash, for taking the time. Thank you so much to Dairy Women's Network for, of course, organising that interview. Of course, what a great way to have an extended show to celebrate our amazing ambassadors in the dairy industry, our females that are coming through and doing some great work. That's all we've got time for tonight. I'd love to say, of course, to you, go good night, go well, and of course, just remember to celebrate what does make us so uniquely New Zealand. We are a very special little bunch at the bottom of the world.
This is Sarah's Country.